At dawn on the morning of May 17, 2005, the Campbell County, Kentucky 911 Center had received a frantic call from Amy Bosley, but the call had cut off. Emergency dispatchers alerted a police cruiser that was in the area of the cabin.
The call came out as an intruder inside the residence.
Meanwhile, the 911 operator got Amy back on the phone.
Yes. Is he in the house now?
He just grabbed and he shot my husband. Oh my God! He shot my husband.
He shot your husband?
Yes! Oh my God!
Moments later, Patrolman David Halfhill arrived at the Bosley's cabin.
I walked inside the residence. Amy Bosley said, oh, he was shot, he was shot.
Amy told Officer Halfhill the intruder had just fled out the back door. The patrolman pushed past her and entered the bedroom. There, he found Bob Bosley, sprawled across the bloody sheets, his body riddled with bullet wounds.
His lips were blue, no movement whatsoever. He was dead.
Police cars surrounded the small cabin. The arriving officers poured into the woods behind the house in search of the shooter.
We immediately called for a canine officer, and we asked for a helicopter for air surveillance.
As cops scoured the woods for Bob's killer, crime scene techs carefully picked through the Bosleys' bloody bedroom.
The victim was face down on the bed. He was shot 7 times.
To the first officers on the scene, Amy's story seemed to check out. The cabin had all the hallmarks of a robbery, from the broken glass in the back door to the ransacked rooms inside.
Every drawer, every cabinet, in the bathroom, the medicine cabinet, things knocked out on the floor.
But when detectives arrived on the scene a few minutes later, they had a very different take. To them, it was all too perfect.
Made-for-TV crime scene is the way I coined it, and it just didn't fit the crime. Pills had been taken out of the bottles and dumped on the floor. There was money laying on the floor. Drawers were open.
But that wasn't the only thing that made detectives question Amy's story.
The canine handler would say, listen, there was dew across that grass. Well, I walked across it and I made trails, There weren't any trails when I started out across that yard. That's where the bad guy would have had to fled.
Amy's sister took the kids, and Amy agreed to ride with detectives back to headquarters for more questioning. Seated in an interview room, Amy again recounted for detectives how an intruder had viciously attacked her and her husband.
When I came to, I was on the floor. And when I stood up, I woke up because Bobby was screaming. And I was like, what in the shit? And now when you're in the dead sleep, and it's like, and this guy is standing there and he's shot. And that's when I started hitting at him.
Then detectives asked Amy if she knew why someone might want to kill her husband.
He is a very wild reputation. I mean, I have a reputation for being nasty inside.
Meanwhile, back at the Bosley's cabin, police made a startling discovery.
4 shell casings were found wrapped up in a towel in the bottom of a washing machine full of clothes and water and detergent.
Police sent the shells to the lab. While they waited for the results, they released Amy, who joined her kids at her sister's house. That afternoon, police started questioning some of the Bosley's employees. They learned that, as office manager, Amy had some rather peculiar business practices.
She had the mail held with specific instructions to the post office that no one but her could pick up the mail.
She had also recently begun intercepting her husband's cell phone calls.
She actually had changed his phone so that she was forwarding all calls that were being made to his cell phone to her.
One of Bob's friends told detectives that Bob didn't know exactly what Amy was hiding, but he was worried enough to contemplate firing her, and not just as office manager.
He said he was going to tell Amy that he wanted a divorce.
The answer to what Amy was hiding wouldn't be long in coming. When detectives arrived back at police headquarters, they were met by a group of unexpected visitors, agents from the Internal Revenue Service.
Found out from the IRS agents that Bob Bosley was the focus of the investigation into the failure to pay taxes for the business.
And the tab he owed the feds added up to nearly $1.7 million.
What Amy Bosley would do is take all the information, take it to the accountants. The accountants then would prepare the tax documents for them to file. She would take it to Bob. Bob would sign. She would never file it.
The IRS agents told investigators that over the past several weeks, they had tried unsuccessfully to schedule several meetings with the Bosleys. Finally, on May 16th, Agent Kelly Manning called Amy. She demanded to speak to her husband.
Amy said, well, just a minute. So a person got on the phone with the IRS agent and said, this is Bob Bosley. And it was described to us by the agent as a woman trying to sound like a man. And she described it as Kermit the Frog, Kermit the Frog voice.
The agent played along. She demanded that both Bosleys meet them in person at their office the following morning to examine the company's financial records. After a brief pause, the voice on the phone agreed and hung up. The meeting never happened. That night, Bob Bosley was murdered. 9 days later, on May 26th, police received the preliminary autopsy and forensic report from the lab. It confirmed what they already suspected. The shell casings uncovered in Amy's laundry were of the same caliber as the bullets found in Bob's body.
At that point in time, I felt like we were on our way to building a case against Amy Bosley.
At 11 a.m. on May 27th, 10 days after Bob's murder, Campbell County Police showed up on Amy's sister's doorstep with a warrant for Amy's arrest.
Quickly got her and walked her away from the house. She was very calm. Said, Amy, we don't want to upset the kids. Come on down here. Put her in a car and drove her off.
If convicted, Amy would never see her kids outside of a prison again. And her kids would end up being the key to Amy's fate.